Today on the show, strategy plus action equals expanding your future by building your lifescape. Great coaches and consultants like you have the ability to change people's lives and transform entire organizations. And your impact can often go far beyond the clients you work with. One of the reasons I love working with coaches and consultants is because of that ripple effect. This show is here to highlight your expertise and empower you with resources and new ideas to grow your business. Welcome to Strategy in Action. Fred Barber is on the show today, and we have this great conversation around this concept that he's put together in his book, Lifescapes, where he really brings together a lot of these concepts that so many people have talked around for several years now, combining this idea of, partially a nomadic lifestyle, if you wish, but in a way that's practical and real, as well as what's possible with travel and working remotely, those things that are so much easier and, again, very practical in 2024, with so much of the workforce remote anyway. And besides the possibilities out there to just do something differently, we dig into this idea that Fred really emphasizes in his book and in this interview, which is the importance of thinking about life today, especially in suburban land, right? On how detrimental that is to our health by not being in these walkable areas where we just, interact with our neighbors and community and move our bodies, that it really is, the data is there of how detrimental that is. But also what a lot of us are sitting on, so many people, I think he said, 10 million people across the U.S. fit into this category of folks who have, they're pre-retirement, but they're sitting in this house that it's great. The value of their homes has gone up, over the years so much, especially these last 3 or 4 years. But they're sitting in this equity that's really not doing anything. And by applying this methodology, this sort of Lifescapes system that Fred has put together here in his book, you take more advantage of that equity and actually have it doing something for you while taking care of your health, while expanding your world in these different ways. And we have those either preconceived notions or emotional attachments to maybe being in the same house or something that he really, he addresses very well in this interview. And I think you're really going to get a lot out of it in terms of grabbing this idea of there are many more options than just, move to Florida when I retire, or, we got to stay here another 10 years, or stay here because the kids may come back, or there's so many more options that are actually practical. And to me, that's just encouraging on life in general, and having that outlook, more options, more possibility, and not just the options to do it, but have a healthier, more fulfilling life by doing them, which is all fantastic. You're going to love this. Absolute blast talking with Fred. All right, let's jump in. Fred Barber, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad Andrew McKinney introduced us and made this connection. We had a fantastic conversation last week and dug into your book. Thank you again for that. Already, we're gonna plug from the beginning. Ooh, double plug. Lifescapes.
And,
All right.
and shout out to my cover designer. She did a beautiful job.
She really did. Yeah. Because I'm one of those too. Like, I do judge books by their cover, without a doubt.
That's right.
As we all do. And just to see that, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Like, this is professional. This looks great. So right off the bat. But yeah, I really want to have you on here to dig into this concept that you really bring together so well in that book of having choice, right? In something as big and monumental as where we live and how we do it. Why are we living where we are in a way that we are in the dwelling that we're living in, right? And really expand all of that. And this is a topic that people have talked around and in pieces, from the digital nomad to doing your work on the beach idea, from 10 years ago that was like, we're going to do that, to people talk about retirement and what you can do. And then there's the concept that's been there for a long time of like, once you retire, then you just buy an RV and travel
like villages in Florida and sit around drive your golf cart around the neighborhood.
Right. Or I know what we'll dig into too. One of those typical ones is more, I'm just going to sit in the house that I've, built this equity in.
Age in place, right? Yeah, because now my house is free once it's paid for, which is a myth.
Right. And that's one of those that, wow, do you outline that so well in the book of which helps all of us, right? We have these concepts of like, oh yeah, I guess that could be kind of expensive, or I guess there's numbers there. But when it's all there on one page with these dollar amounts, like, oh, so much for rent free now that my house is paid off.
I'm going to jump the gun just a tiny bit on the math here. So, there are 6 million homes in America that are worth more than $1 million today. Okay. So if you've got that paid off, maybe you bought it. I mean, I know people in major metropolitan areas that bought a house for $300,000 18 years ago, right? When their kids were little, right? And it was a stretch, but now that house is worth over $1 million. And that's not, in the run up we've had in the last few years, that is typical. Now, you get that house paid for, you don't have a paid for house. You're paying 3 or 4% a year in property taxes, plus utilities, homeowners insurance, and stuff that breaks. So if you think about that, would you pay an investment fund manager 5% a year to manage your money? Most people would think that that's outrageous. And yet you take $1 million asset and set it out there at 5% a year. That's $50,000 a year that you're spending on investment management fees effectively.
Right.
So
that typically isn't appreciating.
Well, even if it is appreciating,
more.
I mean, suppose you bought a place that's half that cost or a third that cost, and then took the balance and put that into a basket of ETFs that are averaging 8% a year. It doesn't take long to come out ahead. Not to mention the stress level it takes you down.
Oh yeah. Oh, big time. So I love this concept. I want to, as we dig into this, I think it's going to make sense back and forth, I think, a little bit on both your background and what got you here. But let's talk about this. What even got you interested in this core concept of it all?
So, look, most good consulting type work starts with your own experience, right? And most consultants are a step or two ahead of their clients, right? That's how you become the world leading expert, is you've done something and you're a step or two ahead of somebody else who has to do a similar thing, right? That's what coaching is about. So look, I'm at a empty nester life stage. I'm a CEO of a tech company. My partners, most of my back office team is actually in Europe. I came in to manage this company a few years ago. And we were acquired by a private equity group, but physically my team is 100% distributed, right? 100% remote. I could be anywhere. Nobody cares where I am, right? My clients are all over the country and in many foreign countries. So, and my kids live in 3 different states. So, the youngest is a senior in college. I had one in law school, one married, living in Chicago. And so I'm like, why am I where I am, right? I'm there because it's where we raised the kids. We had great schools, beautiful area. We've had tremendous run up in value in our house in the last couple of years, largely by luck, luck in a pandemic, right? I think when everybody started working from home, they said, I'm going to have the home I want. And so all the values went up. Now, it's tapered a little bit this year, but still, you can't deny what's happened the last 5 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
17% year over year growth in home values over the last 5 years nationwide. So I'm a quantitative social scientist. When I face a problem, and by the way, my wife's a CPA, so we're pretty good at the tax side of things. But I looked at this as a data analytical challenge, right? As much as like my own financial planner had always kind of pushed the idea, get a 15-year mortgage, pay it off, you're living rent-free, but like at a certain point, I'm overcapitalized. And how do I look at this systematically? But then there's broader issues of like, what makes a place healthy, right? What makes a place emotionally strong, right? What creates community? And I started reading up on those sorts of topics. And I said, I'm not alone in facing these decisions, but I want to lay this out from a systematic data analytical perspective. That's what took me down the path. And I said, well, if I'm doing it, probably somebody else is interested. I should write about it.
I love it. And this is really interesting because the fallacy is on both sides. It's on the data side in this, legacy concept of just like your financial planner was advising, right? Get that equity, 15 years, have that handled, and then it's gravy. Everything's perfect. And then there's also a fallacy on the emotional side that, we get this house and the kids are gone, but, every summer, every holiday, this is going to be where the family gathers, even if they're in 3 different states.
Free up the money and take the kids on a cruise at Thanksgiving. They'll like it more. Take
Exactly.
the kids to Disney at Christmas, right?
Right. And honestly, like that's what I'm excited about this conversation for and why you're coming with this concept and in this book is because it helps us on both of those sides go step back and go, okay, I know where we've just been heads down data wise and emotional wise, financial wise and emotional wise of like, this is the path, this is where we're going. It's time to look up and go, okay, what's the real situation here with family, with the numbers that we're dealing with, and realize it's 2024 when this comes out, right? And in a week it's 2024, and what's available to us now. And we're not in this place of, we don't have to go all or nothing on any of it, which is, I also want to dig in with you on, because it's not like this idea of, oh, well, I have to sell everything and just, live on the road or
a camper van, right? Or go work on a beach in Bali and sell stuff online.
Right. And get, sand in your computer. Yeah. It's, yeah. And so talk to me so you've had that concept, and as you dug into the numbers and what's possible, what started to open up for you in terms of, wow, here's a scenario that makes a lot of sense. Here's a scenario. And for these different age groups and demographics.
Yeah. So regardless of age or demographics, I really want to focus on 2 real problems we have in Western society, largely American society, but this applies in other countries as well. We have engineered a sedentary lifestyle where there's nowhere we can go largely without getting in a car. If I wanted to walk to now this doesn't apply to everybody, but if I wanted to walk to the closest coffee shop from my house, it's an hour, right? And you can go to, and I did it, so I know it's an hour.
Yeah. So, and you're in a populated area. It's not like, you're...
I'm in suburban Dallas, but, suburban America is engineered around cars. Dr. James Levine at the Mayo Clinic came up with the phrase, sitting is the new smoking, right? It is in many ways worse for your health than smoking. Even in things, there's even a correlation between the number of hours you sit during the day and dementia, not to mention cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all these other sort of things. And we see this in the macro pattern, not just like the increase in diabetes and so on, but life expectancy isn't going up in America anymore, right? It was for decades, but it peaked about 10 years ago and actually has come down in the last few years. And it's a function largely of the fact that we don't move, right? Or we something moves us. And then the other aspect of this, so that's kind of one epidemic in America. The other epidemic, the Surgeon General Vivek Murthy has talked about the epidemic of loneliness. Okay. We are socially isolated by the way our communities are designed. Kaiser Family Foundation did a survey. They said 22% of American adults feel socially isolated. The number of adults with 5 or more close friends has just continued to go down. I mean, you talk to anybody in their 30s, 40s, 50s, ask them, how many friends do you have? The number is typically measured on one hand, right? Of people that you really relate to on a real basis.
Even to maintain, it takes real effort to maintain friendships that you've had for years, much less create new ones and be in those situations you would create. It takes so much effort for someone who wants that and values that. It's hard, much less just sort of like letting it happen or not.
None of my kids, none of my extended family live in the same state we do. Okay. When I look at my college friends, my wife's college friends, they're spread all over the country. Now, look, God bless you if you've got your grandparents, parents, children, everybody within 10 miles, right? That's a gift. And I know people for whom that is the reality, but American society is highly mobile, always has been since our founding, right? Go West, young man. Right? We've been mobile since the 1600s, and that is only increased. And so, if you're going to maintain and build those relationships, you can't just parachute in and see somebody for a day or two sometime, or have some ski trip out west. You need quantity time. You need the ability to foster those relationships, but you also need that home-based community to be a place that establishes connection. And so, I looked at that and said, not only is this an aspect of health and emotional well-being, but it also can make a lot more financial sense to just get out of the sedentary suburbs.
Yeah. So what solutions did you start seeing as really as viable, taking, concepts like, go live and work on the beach. Okay, what's the realistic version of that? Or, what started what's the word? Percolate.
Yeah, with all due respect to that go work on the beach idea, I think all of us read Tim Ferriss's book in 2007, right? Or some time after that. And he made a lot of money off. He's built a brand off of the 4-hour work week. But again, this isn't reality, right? And there's even people who specifically have criticized it. Even he has largely been critical of saying, hey, a lot of what I suggested isn't broadly applicable. But the fact that we don't need to be tied to a place, but we should be conscious or systematic in where we find the place as what I call the home base. So my basic model is get as small and inexpensive of a house as makes sense, particularly if you're sitting on a lot of unrealized capital gain. You got a lot of appreciation in your house today. Get something as small and inexpensive as makes sense in a walkable urban community. Okay, now it doesn't necessarily have to be Central City, but it's a walkable community. So the stuff you need: supermarket, pizza place, brew pub, wine bar, dog groomer, right? Medical facilities. Walk to. Make that be a normal part of your life, so that getting in 10,000 steps isn't some task you have to figure out how to do, but it's just a natural part of how you live your life, right? But then also make this a lock and leave, so that, if you want to be gone for a month or 2 or 3, there's no lawn to maintain, there's no, get all that exterior maintenance taken care of. Or even set it up as a rental. Now, what we're looking at doing is, I'm not crazy about Airbnb being my primary residence, although we have set it up with a dead-bolted closet we can put, heirloom type stuff in, right? But we're walking distance to a hospital in our new place. So I'm like, well, there's these travel nurses and other people that come in for, 1 to 3 months. Rent to them when I want to be on the road someplace. And so we coupled that with a travel trailer, an RV. So, we just spent a couple weeks in Utah with our youngest daughter over Thanksgiving. Absolutely delightful. We were at the KOA in downtown Salt Lake City, hung out with her during the day, went on hikes in the afternoon. I was still working though. My wife and I were both still working after the holiday, right? I got a Starlink. I got 200 megabyte per second download speeds. I can function with that thing perfectly.
Oh yeah. And then what a different experience too of like, maybe your daughter wouldn't have made it, back to Dallas or to home or maybe not as inclined, just these little experiences just to be a little bit different and think about holidays different, think about interactions, and just you're actually increasing your chance to have these great little couple of days or week interactions with your kids. And so I love that.
I call it being, the semi-nomadic lifestyle, right? I do believe a home base is important. It's important for a lot of reasons, not least of which is healthcare continuity, right? And some aspects of community, my church, some old friends, my primary physician, my dentist, I want those to be in a place that has excellence in all of those attributes. But I want to be semi-nomadic.
Yeah, and that's again, you're covering all the bases here, which I love, because there's the practical side that you just laid out, but there's also that side, and I think it's that piece that keeps people from going all in and hitting the road, is because for most of us, we're just wired that way. There is that piece of us that feels just a little untethered if we don't have that place we call home. Even if I'm barely ever there, okay, it's there. Psychologically, emotionally, there's something there. And I think that is important, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Kerouac on the road, that's very, it's romantically appealing. It's not reality. And, there's one person I mentioned in the book who, he was from Cleveland. He was a retired rock music DJ and, went on the road, but he kept his home base in Cleveland. Well, last spring, he started feeling a lot of fatigue and getting winded, and then had some pain in his arm. It's like, I got to go home and get this checked out. Well, it turned out he needed triple bypass surgery, right? This stuff happens. But the fact that he maintained that home base, had those relationships, had access to world-class medicine in the Cleveland Clinic, saved his life, right? So, we need to understand like what makes a place good. And so, again, I looked at this systematically. I compiled data. I went and I, took a good chunk of the summer and built a database of 700 walkable communities in America. And that's available on lifescapes.info on my website as a searchable tool. So for each one of these, and I made sure to have one in every state. Wyoming was a challenge.
Is that walkable? In
well,
quotes
it's a great resource called WalkScore. WalkScore.org. They've compiled this database of for any address in America, they a 0 to 100, 1 to 100 score, and my previous house was a 1, the one where it was an hour to a coffee shop, and I moved to one that was a 78. Okay. Which basically means you can do most of the things you need to do in your normal day on foot, right?
Yeah.
But then, so that's kind of a base attribute. And then I built in things like, what's the growth rate? What's the percent college educated? What's the rankings of the schools in that area? There's another organization, Great Schools, compiles that data. What's the crime rate, right? I use crime grades for that. There's an interesting source of the natural disaster risk. The best way to get that is what's the average homeowner's insurance rate. Okay. Because if you live in an area that has tornadoes and hurricanes, you're going to pay more for homeowner's insurance. And it varies tremendously. Homeowner's insurance can be as low as like $400 a year to over $4,000 a year on a $300,000 type of house.
Wow.
The most expensive is like Tornado Alley, Oklahoma, Kansas, highest homeowners insurance rates in the country, because every couple of years you got to replace your roof. Right? So, and then other, more subjective data, like, is there a professional sports team in that county, right? Or a minor league team, or a major university? Are there arts resources? Is there a professional symphony or opera company or ballet company? So I put all that data together for 700 neighborhoods in America. And
so
then
it took you probably just a weekend, right? Right.
It was a chunk of work. It was so the first thing I reached out to a couple of these people that are like, new urbanism influencers. And I asked them, I said, hey, anyone can go just buy this data? And they were all like, no, it doesn't exist. You can go look up one area and get your attribute, go find that data. But there's no way to search across all areas and find those that fit certain criteria. So I went and built it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. And even if they're not taking the Lifescapes path of all of this, what an amazing tool just to have hey, I'm going to go, I'm thinking about moving to Colorado next month. Like, let me have all this in one place to think about all of these things. That's amazing.
Yeah. And by the way, where you are is going to point you to Old Colorado City and Manitou Springs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was reading that the boy that is for, Manitou Springs especially. It's a perfect little town to like be in, but still, you're like a lot of these too, you're so close when you do want to drive and just get there to the big stuff. It's really close, but you feel like you're in this small, walkable, isolated, in a good way, kind of place.
Urbanism without the urban, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
it's a mountain instead behind you. Yeah.
Right. And so, I was looking at a situation where I had over $1 million of equity in a home, and that's completely non-practical for our stage of life. So you got to just set aside the emotional attachment that, this is where my kids grew up, right? And then we went systematically. We had a reason where we need to stay in this metro area for at least a couple more years, and largely deals with my wife's pension accrual. So she's 2 years away from full vesting. She works for a private school, and in any event, we looked at that issue and we said, okay, now let's look around the metro area. Let's find communities that fit our criteria. And then let's evaluate them systematically. I use this, it's a methodology called SMARTER, the Simple Multi-Attribute Rating Technique Employing Rankings. There you go, that's a mouthful. But it's a method to systematically judge a series of attributes that you rank in your order of importance. And then it says, okay, based upon your ranking, here's the areas that best fit your needs. And honestly, we were surprised. I compiled this data. I looked at a whole bunch of different areas around the Metroplex, and I was really surprised with what came out on top, because it wasn't what we were thinking of initially. But yeah, we started walking the neighborhood and we're like, oh, yeah, this does make sense. And we fell in love with it, But more importantly, we cut our housing cost more than 50%. Cut our property tax down 60%, our homeowners down 40%. Lawn care went to zero. It's freed up thousands of dollars a month in our budget. And we took the surplus cash, put that in a basket of balanced ETFs, and it's just set it and forget it. Right now, look, my core audience, who I'm really in essence speaking to, is that empty nester, pre-retired, with dispersed family and friend network. But there I'm talking to 10 to 15 million people in America that fit that definition, right? But there's no reason that a lot of these same principles, couldn't be used by someone in their 20s or 30s, so a young couple, divorcee, whatever. There's all kinds of situations of people who really should be looking critically at where do they live, why, and how to maximize this asset financially while creating freedom and reduce stress in your life.
Oh yeah. And that's what's great too about having this concept in your head when you are, younger and you're not to that stage, well, you're going to make some different decisions when you have more options you're heading to rather than the one typical, this is what you do, you get to retirement. And this, you can start, you can actually, maybe you stay on that same path that some folks do to get, their kids off and all that stuff. And they grow that equity in that house, but they do it really purposefully. And they know that exit that's going to happen at this exact stage, right? Down to the month, because, hey, we've got it planned. We know exactly where we're moving now because we've used this database and you have that dialed in.
But I think we need to fundamentally keep in mind that the suburbs are killing us. And I don't think we've really, brought that reality home that when we engineer a sedentary lifestyle. So even if, yes, I need to be in a place that has great schools or whatever, focus on that walkability. Increasingly, these new urbanism communities are not just in city centers. Some of them are, many of them increasingly, you go to Frisco Square in the Dallas area that I'm sure you know pretty well, right? Fits the model very well. You've got a brand new HEB a couple blocks away, not to mention all, and fantastic schools. So it is possible to get the notion of walkability and, a tight urbanistic community and not sacrifice, not put yourself in an area that's going to have lower quality schools or higher crime, right? And again, my database makes that searchable. I'll help you find hundreds of communities in America that fit that profile.
Yeah, that's great. Because that's a great point too. It's not just what maybe you and your spouse are putting up with or doing for, let's say, 20 years in a suburb. Not that that's a small thing, because that sedentary lifestyle can wreak havoc in those 20 years. But also, we're teaching our kids during those 20 years, this is how you live. This is what you do. You sit down, you get in a car. So, of course, that's what happens for their next 20 years, because that's just what we do, right? And right. So breaking that cycle.
Developing type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, to be able to break that cycle right now and to think about it on that front as well, that's so powerful. And that's something that's talked around, I think, and nobody is bringing that forward enough from a practical day-to-day. Yes, we should go to the gym. Yes, we should lose weight. Yes, we should, it's all around, and we kind of want to. But to talk about it in this very practical way, meaning if, like you said, get your 10,000 steps in, just living your life, right? Not on some journey or, an hour a day in the gym, just living and existing. Hey, you're checking the box on staying healthy.
Yeah, look, I know people who live in Manhattan. That's what they do. But of course, there's other aspects of living in Manhattan that are problematic. So I'm looking at this thing and saying, look, figure out a way to design your life around this. Honestly, I was looking at this initially from a financial perspective. Right, I was sitting on an overappreciated asset in a house that was only full 5 days out of the year. I'm like, why are we here? And a lot of lawn to care for, right? So I was looking at this from, financial and freeing up some time by not having to mow the lawn. What surprised me when I got out of the research was how much this tied into health. When I started reading the literature on this, it just amazed me how the health benefits of being in a more walkable area, not just for stress reduction and physical activity. The other aspect of what Surgeon General Murthy refers to as the epidemic of loneliness, a lot of that is rooted in the lack of the need for third places, is a term that's used. So you have your house, you have your work, right? And if all you do is drive between those two, that you're not naturally involved in third places. And third places can be the coffee shop, the wine bar, the park where you're walking your dog and meeting other people with their dogs. the place of worship, the church, synagogue, whatever. If those become an integral part of that community, that's part of your normal routine of how you live your life, that creates a greater sense of social cohesion, which has all these other health benefits. Interestingly, it's also even correlated with being more politically active. People that are more connected in their community are more likely to vote, are more likely to even maybe go to a town council meeting or, get involved in a local issue like that. So there's all these other benefits that flow from the type of place you choose. Now, again, I've combined this with this semi-nomadic option because the reality is, for a vast number of Americans in particular, but people in any Western culture, we have family, we have friends spread far and wide. We've organized our lives so that we're spending a couple weeks every summer in Vancouver, where we built some great relationships up there with a little summer institute we go to at the University of British Columbia. Done it the last 2 years. Hope to do it for a few more years. And hey, when it's 105 degrees in Texas and it's 70 degrees in Vancouver, I'm all about that, right? But, I also work for a European company. I have an office in Prague. And, we're like, okay, we're going to go spend a month of the year in Prague, right? And, just get a B&B there for a couple weeks. I have my business colleagues there. We have a old friend who moved to Vienna a few years ago. Well, okay, that's a couple hours away. Let's go see them. So you can build in these aspects of nomadism while still maintaining that home base. Another thing I point to in the book, there's an organization called Remote Year that I bumped into a couple years ago. Fascinating program. So you basically, you join like 20 to 30 other people that spend a month in a different city of the world. And they provide you with a furnished apartment and a co-working membership, right? So, you're not alone doing that. You're doing this with this group of people. You do it for 1 month, 4 months, a year, whatever you want. So, a friend of mine went to Medellin, Colombia with them last December. This is a good friend. He's divorced, doesn't have really tight family-parent relationships, and he's like, Christmas is always a little lonely and depressing. So I said, why do you go and join Remote Year and join 25 other people in Medellin, Colombia for a month?
Heck yeah. I love that. Well, and that's the other piece of it too. It's even if you don't have those relationships yet, just the mind expanding, again, emotional expanding aspect of travel. The more you do, the more you are open to the world and all of that. And just to be purposeful with that connection building out in the world.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons on the cover of the book we put the RV, and it's probably for trademark reasons. That's not actually an Airstream in the way it's designed. That's the basic idea.
But Airstreams are nice.
They are. Yeah. But, the funny thing is, my cover designer initially had too small of a truck. Like, you're not pulling something that big without a crew cab. So so we chose to add a travel trailer into our mix for our nomadism. And then, we joined a group called Escapees, which has all these affinity groups of people at different life stages, going different places. And you basically discover a community of like-minded, really nice people that, we're increasingly, we've only done this a little bit, just starting to get our feet wet in the space. But it's just been a really fun way of not just getting out and exploring and seeing new things, but also when we go to see family or friends in another city, we're not imposing, right? Because we bring our motel room with us.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I love it. You brought up something as we kind of wrap here, and I want to give some people some directive on where to go to learn more. You brought up this great point, really speaking specifically to my audience of coaches, consultants, as this added tool. And I just love this concept that there's plenty of clients and audience members of mine who this could just be perfect for themselves. But having this Lifescapes system, as a tool to point their clients to as they're walking someone through either financial, they're trying to get their business on track. They're trying to get this, to have this tool to go, have you ever thought about this concept, this fully fleshed out concept, not again, just the vagary of like, well, you could sell your house and go, travel around. Cool. How do I do that? But here's this fully fleshed system of not only could you do it, but this really makes more sense for you financially and everything if you go and do that. Talk to me about how, I guess pointing someone in kind of embracing that aspect as a coach to go, oh, well, I guess I could use this beyond just the book. What kind of calls to action could you give to them?
Yeah. So on the website, lifescapes.info is the website. Interesting, the .com is it's some organization in Wyoming. so I haven't gone to them to buy their domain yet. But lifescapes.info.
That's 2 strikes against Wyoming in this interview. That's 2 strikes. Don't give us a third, Wyoming.
Maybe it's in Montana. I don't know. But in any event, lifescapes.info is the website that has the model section on that. You create a little user account. It's free, by the way. So, you go in and you put in the criteria that are important to you, and it pulls up a list of neighborhoods. And I'll build in more functionality down the road here. And I may build in some more fee-based services, as I get more use of it and kind of learn what the market needs. Because really, I could see a coach, definitely using something like this to say, hey, here's what's important to you. Let's put those attributes in, and we'll help find a set of places. Now we'll start looking at, what are the housing costs? What are the options there? What are the specific schools? What are the community resources, right? Then in the book, I talk a lot about things like domicile, taxation, all the very practical aspects. Taxes vary hugely, and your choice of a location could have a massive impact on your total taxation. I actually walk through a series of examples in the book about, how to figure out, because a lot of people say, well, hey, I want to be in Texas because it doesn't have a state income tax. You have a state income tax there in Colorado, but your property tax is so much lower, the chances are you're paying less total tax than I am for a comparable house, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I'm not a CPA, but my wife is. And so, we laid out some of those, some of those issues of how do you calculate what it actually costs to live in a different place. So those tools are there. They're laid out systematically. There's a lot of information. All the content of the book is also on the website on lifescapes.info. And if you create a little user account on the model, you can save searches and have those available, and you'll be able to look at it as a tool in that decision-making process.
So great. I love that. I mean, I can see so easily people specifically being Lifescape coaches in this to do exactly, take somebody through exactly what you're talking about, and being that advisor and provide those solutions out there in similar ways that financial planners do, or, be an aspect of that without all the regulation, to go and help people.
One of the first reviews of my book on Amazon was actually a retirement financial planner, and who read it, and he's like, this is great stuff. And then he emailed me directly and said, hey, can I put a blurb about your book in my newsletter that goes to all my clients? I'm like, absolutely. So look, right now, today, all I'm doing is selling books and pointing people to the website. Where this goes, you talk about, this might be my own coaching business. It may very well be, a gig in the future. I don't know. This is step one. But step one was a lot of work to do the research and get the content put together.
Oh yeah. And I think that's what's all your good work is showing, because it's sparking that in the retirement financial planner. It's sparking this in me to go, oh, this could be because it's so robust, that initial work that you've put into this and putting this full concept together. So I congratulate you for that. And it shows through.
Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is fantastic. Well, I think it's really clear already. We've painted that picture of who this is for and absolutely where they need to go. Lifescapes.info for sure. What do you see as sort of next for you in this realm as you roll this out and have more conversations about it?
I think there's additional opportunities for productization of the concept. I could see, using what's currently on the website as like a freemium. So people are able to come in and play around and get some ideas. But I think there are more value-added services that I will build in. I'd be interested in actually building in an affiliation relationship with a realtor network. So you look at a move, hey, we'll refer you to a realtor who, is accredited with the model, understands what they're doing, and can help you find the place. Even things like, sort of a concierge service. So like, hey, somebody says, I'm looking to relocate and I've narrowed down my search. I'm looking at, Charlotte, North Carolina or Greenville, South Carolina. Maybe there's a way in which one of the things I talk about is a low-cost probe, right? Before you make a major decision, get the Airbnb there for a week, get to know the community. And there may be a way of packaging that low-cost probe experience that could be offered up as a service.
Oh yeah, that is a standalone thing for that. I love it. Yeah, and partnering with, going beyond the obvious, Verbos or Airbnbs, but to what are the networks who are really talking to those traveling nurses, for instance, partnering with those folks and in sponsorship and affiliate.
If you're going to be checking out an area, okay, how do I get an introduction? How do I know what's the best coffee shop in the area? Or how can I actually be introduced to some people who live there? Can I talk to the local police about crime? Right? A realtor cannot discuss that with you. They cannot tell you whether an area is high or low crime. It's in their code of ethics. They can't even really talk about the quality of the schools. Right? There's things that they are not allowed to discuss. But wouldn't it be great if you were considering a move to be able to actually, have a chat with a cop who works that area? Right? Because they're going to tell you things.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, because most of us have experienced that too. Like there's data or the headlines or whatever say one thing, but then it's, okay, that's true. Those numbers are true and feel kind of high, but that's really in this pocket.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Crime's extremely localized. Yeah. Yeah. And even in areas where like the overall schools may not have a great rating. Well, what are the magnet schools like, right? What are the private schools in that area? So that kind of detailed local knowledge would be great if you could package it up and just, offer that as a concierge service. So these are ideas I'm working on. The book's been out a few weeks, so give me a month or two to flesh this out.
Come on, this should already be down, Fred. Come on, let's go. You should have 6 LLCs already put together based on this, and go.
Yeah, I also have a full-time job.
All I hear is excuses, Fred. That's all I hear right now. This is great. I really enjoyed the book. I love the concept, and I'm excited that you're rolling this out.
Excellent. Jason, thank you so much. I've been enjoying listening to your podcast, and you're putting out some great content. So it's great to get to know you.
No, I appreciate that. Likewise. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of this show. If you want help creating authority-building video content or even a client-generating show of your own, go to MediaLeadsCo.com and let's connect. I'll talk to you soon on the next Strategy in Action.
This show is powered by Media Leads. To get your next great podcast produced, go to MediaLeadsCo.com.